Hey, Liam here, and in this video I'm going to show you the basics of LibreCAD and how you would create a basic house floor plan using the basic drafting tools that are available to you in this free and open source program. If you haven't checked out LibreCAD, take a look at the link in the description to the project page. It's pretty decent considering that it doesn't cost anything, and you can use it to draft all sorts of different things, but in this particular video I'm going to demonstrate drafting basic house floor plan. To start out, when you create a new file, one of the things that you're going to want to probably consider is the units that you're drawing in. In this particular instance, drafting a architectural plan, I'm going to be using feet and inches or architectural units. If you open the drawing preferences from the options menu, the tab that is relevant to units you can find right here, and I've set my drawing units to inches and the format to architectural. Depending on what you're drafting or where you're drafting, you may be more comfortable using metric, and that's totally alright. You can do that as well. During the course of this video, we won't actually be expressing most of our dimensions in actual architectural units while we're doing input in LibreCAD, and I'm going to hopefully show some of the tips and tricks for actually working with architectural units in LibreCAD. But if you want to just work with millimeters, that's totally fine as well. So just getting started, now that I have my units set, I've also set the grid preferences to have an X spacing of 1 and 1, so 1 unit, 1 inch in this particular case in this drawing. So with that all aside, one of the basic tools that you may want to use in any CAD package is a line tool. So I currently don't have any snapping options set, so as you can see there's a crosshair that's appeared with my mouse cursor that is asking me for the first point, the specified first point as shown here in the command line. So if I'm going to click, I'll actually create a new line, and I can drag and create another endpoint. Now after I've created my first line, by default the program will start drawing another line with the start point being the end point of the previous line. So I'll just draw a couple lines here. So once I've done that, to exit the command I hit the escape key on my keyboard. Now I'm just going to demonstrate how the selection tools in LibreCAD work, and also just to mention, you may have seen me panning around here. Use your middle mouse button to click and drag to pan, and use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out on the drawing. To select items in LibreCAD, there's two ways that you can do it. By clicking and dragging, and if you drag to the left here, you'll see that you'll get a green selection. If you drag to the right, you'll get a blue selection. These selections represent different things. The blue selection is like an inclusive selection, so you have to highlight both the start and the end point of a line in this instance completely in order for it to be selected. With the green selection, anything that's within the bounding area of the selection box will end up being selected. So for instance, if I was to do a selection like this, I'll end up just selecting this one line segment. If I did a selection like this, I'd end up with this top segment and this segment off to the top right. Now if I was to go the other direction, I don't have to completely enclose any of the line segments, but I will have them all selected for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete these. So while they're selected, if you hit the delete key on your keyboard, it'll delete items from your drawing. So now let's start out by drawing a line, and I'm going to draw a line directly to the right, and we'll say that this is like a wall or a side of the edge of a foundation of a building. So I'll go back to my line drop down tool, and I'll click the 2 points option again, and I want to draw it from the absolute origin of the drawing. So there's a couple of ways that you could do that. You could just type 0, 0 on your keyboard, And you can see there that input shown up down in my command line. And if I hit enter, you can see now, sorry, I moved my mouse and it actually removed the input, so keep that in mind if that ever happens to you. So if I hit 0, 0, don't move my mouse and hit enter. Now if I move my mouse, you'll see that there'll be a preview of the line from the origin point to whatever point on the drawing that I would click on. But I want to go 12 feet directly to the right, so in this particular case I'm going to turn on grid snap, which you can see here. Once I click it, it's be highlighted in blue. And if I look at my position in the bottom left, if I was to go 24 feet to the right, that would be 24 and 0. So I can do it that way, or if I wanted to use polar coordinates, I could click at the origin point, or I could just type again like before 0, 0, and then I would give it a distance. So since I've set my units to inches, I'm going to need to use multiplication. So 12 times 24, and then the left arrow bracket, and then the direction. So in LibreCAD, the base angle is to the right, and the direction is counterclockwise. So essentially math angles. Again, since I moved my cursor, I'm going to have to now re-enter that input. So we'll do 12, or sorry, 24, times 12 at 0 degrees. And once I hit enter, a line is drawn from that point to that point. So now I think I might want to show how to offset a line. So if I go into the tools menu and go down to modify, you find a tool here called offset. If you run this, it doesn't give you the option by default to actually input the distance that you want to offset something by. So I find that you actually have to run it by typing in the word offset here in the command line, and now specifying the offset distance. So I want to just make basically a square. So I'll offset this line by 24 by times 12 again, so 288 inches. And you can see that there is something to note about the offset side. So the cursor selects the object to offset, and it selects the direction to offset it by where it is relative to the line. So actually that doesn't help at all because the cursor doesn't resize when you zoom. But because the line is just off, or sorry, just the cursor is just off of the top side of the line, it's offsetting the line to this direction. So I'm going to draw upwards, so to speak, here. So also, if while you have this tool selected, you can click and pan with the middle mouse button still. So what I need to do though is now click while I have that line appearing in the preview offset. So I'm just going to do that, and it'll create a new line entity. The tool is still running though, so I could continue doing more offsets, like this, for instance, if I wanted to repeat that offset. But I don't want to actually do that in this particular instance. So I'm just going to hit escape to close that tool, and I'm just going to select these two lines that I made. I'm just going to delete them. So anyways, now that we have this line made, I'm going to connect this side. So I've been using grid snap, and you could use grid snap in this particular case because the endpoints do align with the grid. But say that they didn't, I could turn off grid snap and actually turn on endpoint snap at this point, and go back into my line tool, select 2 points, click there, and click there, and you can see that the mouse the cursor or crosshair is jumping from the endpoint of one line to another line. So if I was to draw across like diagonally here, I could create like a diagonal line from this endpoint to this endpoint. or I could even draw another line on top of this line. I'm just going to close this side of this shape. So now what we have is 3 separate lines. There's another kind of line that you may want to consider using called a polyline. A polyline is like a continuous line. So it's an entity with multiple line segments. If you close a polyline, then you have a polygon. In this particular case here, there's 2 things that you could do. You could either choose the polyline tool and just draw over the line segments that you had just made. But in this case, since the endpoints align perfectly, which they'll have to align perfectly to use this tool, I can use this create polyline from existing segments to actually create a continuous line. So you can see here now when I click any point on this, it'll select all of the lines that form that polyline. Now I'm kind of envisioning sort of a floor plan that has like 2 sort of offset squares with the squares kind of centered at the midpoint on the face that they meet. So what I could do now is actually take this and mirror it across, because it's going to be the mirror image of itself and then moved. So one tool that we'll look at now is in modify mirror. So choose mirror. It'll now ask me for a mirror line. You can see that it's jumping again from the endpoint to endpoint, which will work fine for this because I want to mirror it along this this vertical axis. But I could also decide to restrict my cursor vertically and snap to a grid point instead. And you would see that it would restrict my cursor to these points. But I am going to turn off orthogonal restriction, and I am just going to use the existing points that I have now to mirror it. So once you click your first point and then drag a line away, you'll see that it'll show you a preview of the mirrored entity that it's going to create. Now if I just turned off endpoint snap, you'd be able to see here as well too how the angle at which you draw the mirror away affects the way that it's going to be mirrored essentially. But I just want to do a nice perfect like orthogonal angle, so I'll just do endpoint snap and snap to the point here. So now it'll ask me if I want to keep the original or delete original, and whether or not I want to use the current attributes or use the current layer. I'm just going to click use current layer. We're working on layer 0. I'm going to explain layers a little bit here in a minute, but for now let's just do use current layer. Keep original. That'll keep us from deleting this one. If you wanted to mirror something and then have the original not be there and have to go through the process of deleting it, then delete original, but just leave it as is for now. So we'll just hit OK. And now we'll see that we have a rectangle. Although it's a rectangle made up of 2 polyline segments. So I want to move this up this way. So now we should look at the move tool. So if I go into modify and I choose move/copy, the first thing the tool wants is a starting point or a reference point. The reference point in this particular case I am just going to use as one of the endpoints, so where these 2 points meet. So I'll click that. Now I'm going to turn off snap to endpoint and turn back on grid snap. And in this particular case, it's easy to identify where the midpoint is because of the dimensions that we're using. So in other circumstances, if you wanted to do something like this, you could also turn on the midpoint snap option, or right here, snap middle. And I could turn off grid snap, and I could snap to the midpoint of this line. But yeah, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to turn that back off, and we're going to move this here. So once I click with the move tool, I'll get a dialog box that's going to ask me if I want to delete the original, keep the original. In this case, I want to actually delete the original because I'm not going to be using it anymore, and I'm going to keep it on the current layer. So now that I've done that, I want to just deselect it by hitting the escape key on my keyboard. And I am going to close up these lines to create like sort of a continuous foundation. So I'm going to open up my 2-point line tool again, turn off grid snap, turn on endpoint snap, and I'll just draw a line from there to there, hit escape, and then now I can show you a shortcut. If you hit your, if you right click, you'll get a history of your commands that you've used recently. So my most recent one was 2 points, so it's the first one on the list. So I'll click 2 point, and then I'll just draw another line from here to here. Now, like I did before, I'm going to select everything, go into the polyline drop down, and then create polyline from existing segments. And I have a continuous polyline that can form sort of like the foundation of whatever sort of like house or building that we're designing here. So now I'm thinking about the interior walls of the house. So I'm going to just draw those at 4 inches wide. The easiest way to create something like that from an existing polyline that we have here is to go into the polyline menu and then choose the create equidistant polyline tool. And then here in spacing, you'll give it the dimension that you want in the unit that you're working in, so 4 inches and 1 copy. Now it have to hit the enter key here once I do that, and then choose the original polyline. I'll actually just hover over my cursor at any point in the polyline and click. And this is kind of important. The side that you click while selecting will be the direction at which it's drawn. So if I now hit enter, well, the tool is repeating itself. So if I was to now click outside of that polyline with the cursor slightly over the line, it's going to offset it in this direction. It's kind of confusing. It works different than AutoCAD, but that's just the way that it works in LibreCAD. So I didn't actually need that second line polyline that I created, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. But now I have basically some interior or exterior walls. If I wanted to start drawing like an interior wall based around these interior walls, I think I might want to actually like create like an alcove or kind of like a room area that extends into this like square area that might like contain like the stairwell or something along those lines. Was like maybe a mechanical room that's like shared with like a garage space over here. So I'm going to I think divide this wall just like directly in the middle. So I'm going to choose the 2-point line option tool and turn on snap to middle or snap middle, and then I'm going to turn on vertical restriction. Right, so as you can see here, it's not behaving quite like I expected because it's locked to the reference point. So I may want to move that. So if I do set relative 0, turn off or vertical restriction, and then I just turned off snap middle by mistake, but I need to keep that on. I'm going to just set that there. Okay, and now what I can do is turn on 2-point, and if I turn on vertical, vertical orthogonal, or it's vertical orthogonal lock, I can just then pull this down this way. So in this particular circumstance, I could now also turn on grid point snap and just drag this wall down to this point here, and you can see that the cursor aligns with the interior of this wall over here. So I think that's just the way that I'm going to do it here. And now I'm going to draw another line to connect these. I'll do 2 points, it'll turn off, the orthogonal restriction, and I'll just turn on endpoint snap, and then I can drag that across here and close that up. Now, since this doesn't form a polyline LED, if I select these, and now I create polyline from existing segments, I can take this, and then I am going to do my create equidistant polyline again, and I am going to do spacing 4, and we'll select on that side there, and now I'll have a wall that matches the width of the walls that I created previously. You could trim these up here if you want. You can also trim this line segment here as well. You then have to create a continuous polyline from these parts as well, so like the interior of this wall, or you could create a continuous polygon from this shape by adding some small endpoints. Whether or not you want to do this might depend on whether you're just drawing a two-dimensional plan, or if you want to import this into Blender and create like solid three-dimensional shapes, which I'll have a video on later, using this floor plan. So with these items selected, I'm just going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to do create polyline from existing segments, and that'll form it up into like a wall segment here. So now that I have that done, might want to consider what the internal layout of the room is going to look like. I think this will just like form like the ground floor, like kind of an open kitchen dining room area in here. Although I'm thinking I may want to close this and turn it into like a room in itself with maybe the stairwell. So you can see that this wall isn't actually aligned with like this wall now. So I may want to actually take this apart by selecting it, and then in the command line I can type the word explode, and that will explode all of our polylines into individual line segments. You can see now that as I click on stuff, it'll select it individually. So this wall, I believe, would end up being 4 inches to the left of this, because this would be on the exterior face of this wall, this exterior face here. So I'm going to keep this on the origin point here. I'm actually going to move this over 4 inches to the left. So I'm going to have that area selected, and then if I go Tools, Modify, Move/Copy, and then I'm going to select this as the base point, and then if I just drag across here, since I have I can just choose Snap to Grid, and then I'll delete original, and I'll move what I drew there earlier 4 inches to the left. Now obviously these line segments don't align anymore. Just delete that. But what I can do is actually, just by clicking the endpoint of a line and dragging it, you can change its location. So if I do that with that endpoint there, I can now get that to line up with that wall. And if I go up here, I can drag this over here, drag this over here. Now what I might want to do is actually clean this up a little bit, have open segments on the end of the wall, which you might typically see on like a normal drawing. You can see here too, like there might be lines if you're exploding polylines that end up underneath other lines on the same sort of like segment or area of the drawing. I'm just going to delete that because I'm not actually going to use polylines really for this part of the drafting work, except for when I want to offset stuff that has like angles, because doing that with Polyline will mean that you won't have to use the trim tool as often, and the trim tool can be kind of slow, although very useful when doing certain types of drawings. We'll demonstrate it later. So there we go. I now have sort of a continuous wall segment. So this is like the first floor. So what I might want to do is actually move that to a separate layer that I can turn on and off as I want to view different floors up and above one another. So we've been working on layer 0 this entire time. We need to actually make a new layer. So if you click this plus button here, you see that you get the add a layer context menu. You click that and you'll end up with a options dialog here. Make the layer name, I'm going to say like 4-1 walls. And you can also change the color, which will be the default like line color for the whole layer. I'm going to work with green in this particular case, so I'll do green and I'll click OK. Now these lines are on layer 0, so we'll want to move them. So if I select all of these lines, I can now go into Tools, and if I go to Modify, if I choose Attributes, I can choose which layer that the lines are on. So if I choose Floor 1 Walls, and then I click OK, it'll move it to that layer, and you can see the colors change to green to correspond with that layer's color. So now I want to basically work with this, floor plan for the second floor above it. So what I'll do is I'm going to copy these, but before I do that, I'm actually going to create a new layer called Floor 2 Walls. And I'm going to set it to be a different color for now, just so we can distinguish them. Click OK. And now what I'm going to do is make sure that I have Floor 2 Walls selected as my current layer, and I'm going to go to copy again, so right click because I used move copy recently, and I'm going to set my reference point to just 0, 0. My target point I'm going to set to 0, 0 as well, so it'll mean that the copy will end up happening at the exact same location. Hit enter. I'm going to do keep original and use current layer, and what that'll do is copy all of these lines into Floor 2 Walls. So once I've done that, you can see once I deselect everything, it's in blue now because it corresponds with the layer color. So maybe on this floor we're going to want to have a couple bedrooms. I'm thinking the orientation of this house, the sort of like view, the sort of external view, would probably be out from this side of the building. So I'm going to design that with the second floor, probably also having like a living room, or sort of like maybe an open open stairwell loft sort of area over here that allows you to kind of like look out to like the main living area. So I think I'm going to do a floor layer as well too for the second floor. So let's do another layer, and I'm going to work with let's do just another color so we can distinguish that. We're going to do Floor 2, and then we'll just call this floor. No, actually we'll just call that, we'll just call it floor because that works for now. So probably gonna have, let's see, what would be a reasonable distance to have as an open area to view up to some windows. Maybe 10-12 feet or so, which would end up being about the halfway point of this wall here. It seems like a little too large. Maybe, 12 feet. Let's go with 12 feet. So I might want to figure out where that point is along this wall. So if I do 2 points here, and I'm going to start from this endpoint here, and I'm going to look down here, which is like the relative dimension from the start point, and go just 12 feet over. Yeah, so I've got that. And then from here, maybe I'm going to go 12 feet down, which ends up aligning with this, this side of the wall nicely. And then I'll go 12 feet over. And then I can just delete this temporary little line segment that I made. So now that I have that made, I might want to consider what the interior space layout of the second floor would look like. I don't think that I'm going to include this wall here necessarily. You can see as I delete that, the wall underneath it is showing because it's on the layer below. What I can do is I can just turn that layer off so I'm not seeing it right now. So if I want to just trim this up, I can just drag that up like that, drag that over like that, close that up. And for here, what I would do is just delete that, drag it back over to the endpoint that I had before earlier. And I think I'll turn this into a bedroom perhaps. So actually I'm going to end up undoing what I did before, but that's alright. I can drag this across. So now you can see that this isn't really lining up with anywhere on the grid per se. So what I might want to do is snap intersection. So if I was to now drag this, let's do this a different way. Let me just draw a line. And if I turn on orthogonal restriction, yeah. Now as you see, when I drag over here, it's snapping to grid as well too, but if I turn that off, I can show you that it's not actually using that. It'll snap to the intersection point across from that side. Oh, right, and I'm still on the floor 2 floor layer, so let's just switch back to floor 2 walls and do that again. Like that. Then I can just offset this, I guess, be the easiest way. So with the offset tool, type in offset, and then specify a distance, so just 4 inches. And we'll click over on that side, and it'll create that new offset line. Now what I can do is just drag that down like that. Drag this over like this. Make a new 2-point line. And then I have the interior wall there. So now I'm thinking maybe I want to connect to the master bedroom area over to master bathroom, walk-in closet sort of arrangement. So I could maybe put that along here. So let's think about how wide we'd want that to be. Probably 8 feet would be 8 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet. I want to kind of retain some of this like interior space over here to potentially put like a closet or an office maybe, or maybe we want to put office space over here. Interesting question. Let's just focus on the walk-in closet master bathroom situation first. So over here we want to go probably from 8 feet. So you can see here I'm snapping. We went from the origin point. Let's just draw a line. Turn off snap. just leave endpoint snap on, and then go over this way. We'll turn on grid snap now, and we'll see for 8 inches over to the right, or sorry, 8 feet over to the right, how that looks. Yeah, that should be okay. So I'll go there, and then we'll go straight up, and I'll turn on snap intersection, snap to that wall across there. Now I can do offset again. And again, I'm writing offset in the command line because if you select offset from the tools menu, it's kind of annoying setting the offset distance. So create that, and I now have another 4-inch wall over here. So now I'm just gonna drag that over there for that line, make another line across over here, and I can do the same thing down here, although actually wait, I already have a line segment there that works, so I can just drag that over there like that to close up that wall. So now maybe we want to think about like doorways, door access, although are we quite there yet? So maybe this is walk-in, or this will be the bathroom, and then we'll have a walk-in closet beside it. Yeah, you can have like a walk-in closet that kind of extends like this with like a hallway that maybe goes into the master bathroom from 2 sides. Yeah, that'll work. So how about we want to keep a hallway probably about 6 feet wide. So we can look at that here. That'll end up being probably about a quarter of the length, or half the length here. So let me turn on endpoint snap. Oh yeah, and turn off that, and there, and now we can turn on grid snap, and we go -6 feet down. So yeah, that'll work. Okay, so we'll go over that way. And probably gonna want to place the door to the master bedroom right here, so we can kind of like make a hallway that's faced out here from the closet. So how far over would this be? This would be 10 foot 8, 11 feet, 12 feet. I'm gonna go with 11 foot 8. And then just drag this down. Still have a good grid snap point, so we just snap onto the face there. Now I'm actually going to make this a polyline, and I'm going to do create equidistant polyline. Did before, and set it to 4 inches, and click over like that. And then kind of just the same process as before. Dragging 2 points around, bring that over like that, bring that over like that, close that up, and yeah, gotta drag that line back in there. I don't know how that happened. And yeah, we're kind of making our way here. So we've got like master, bathroom, closet, bedroom here. We're gonna have like a door here into the master bedroom. Door here into the master bathroom, door here between the master bedroom and the bathroom, and then closet along here, and then I would imagine probably windows along this side of the wall, so you can like set up your bed over here, something along those lines. Now one thing I'm thinking is, do we want to place perhaps an office over here? Yeah, let's do that. So office space, we could probably make it, well, here's the thing, like, is this going to be a living space up here, like over in this one corner here, sort of like open concept, wider interior living space? I'm not sure. And whether or not you want to place a second bathroom up here as well too. Probably want to have at least 2 bedrooms and an office, so the best place probably to put a small bedroom would be along this wall. And then that means we might want to move this up and actually make sort of an interior cut smaller. Gotta think for a second. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna put bedroom here, and that'll end up being, probably want to keep it about 14 feet wide. This is 12 feet here, so what I could do is make this a wall, make this a bedroom, and then probably put a bathroom up here in the corner along with some closet space. Yeah, that would work. And then you can have a bathroom on the floor below it, in this location here, along with like a pantry and something along those lines, or like some sort of like storage space or small room in the main floor. So I am going to do that. So let's start by drawing a smaller bathroom than that. So probably do, see how 8 feet looks across here. That would give you 4 feet of this. No, you know what? Let's do it 8 feet wide this way, and then going across the whole way here. Yeah. So start from that endpoint, turn back on, grid snap, zoom in close enough so that the grid works with it, and then 6 feet. 6 feet should be wide enough for a bathroom. So yeah, we could do 6 feet like that, and then probably 6 feet square. Gonna work. Then come over this way, and we're gonna do again like we did before. Create equidistant polyline. Or wait, create polyline. Yep. And then from existing segments, and then create equidistant polyline spacing for. Click with the crosshair slightly over the side of the polyline in the direction that you want it to go, and then you end up with a new polyline segment. And then we just clean up the walls a little bit like this. And there we go. So now we might want to consider where I was going to put that bedroom, right? Probably just do it like here. Yeah, just make it like square across here. Why not? So I can actually reuse this by, if I go into attributes and moving it onto my wall layer, and then I'll do an offset 4 inches. So type in the command line, and click over there, and then just clean this wall up by doing that. Do another 2-point line, and then I suppose you can just have the interior wall on this length. Let's just see how this lines up with the floor below it too. So this wall is here, underneath here. That's probably okay. Probably going to need to place like some sort of column here in the middle, so might want to consider drawing that in at this point as well. May want to consider the beam and joist plan as well too at some point here, once we kind of have the idea for how we want to lay out the walls figured out. I may actually copy this wall segment here too down to the floor below. So let's start considering placement of like windows, for instance. So windows are rectangles, at least when you look at them vertically and horizontally. But if we wanted to draw some like windows and doors, we could use a new layer called let's say floor 1 doors, and I'm going to turn off floor 2 for a minute here. Now I'm going to think about where I want to place our doors. Let's think about this area here first. So like I thought this was going to be garage, so I would probably place the garage door about here, so that you could drive your vehicle in the whole length of this length and still have this like mechanical area available to you. And then place the door probably around here to enter that area. And then you could have a stairwell probably over here, which would work with this sort of like hallway entry area into like the master bathroom. So yeah, let's draw some doors in here. So I am going to go into the shape tool and choose rectangle, and I'm going to make my exterior door well, let's look a good typical door width, probably like 1'6" or 2 feet. 36 inches, okay, yeah, so 3 feet. So from the origin point, we would want to be about probably, yeah, so actually garage door, right? So let's do a garage door that's 10 feet wide. Yeah, so go from 2 feet in from the corner of the house, and then 10 feet wide. So we end up with something that looks like that. So with the rectangle tool, you click the first point, and then you click the second point, and it will create a continuous shape. So if I click on that, it's like a polygon like our other items. Now you can see too that it's above our other layer. Now if I was to come and draw something above that, you can see it also appears above the floor 2 walls. So kind of maybe will mess up your perception of the drawing itself. The thing about layers in well, pretty much every CAD package, but also like LibreCAD, is that they don't actually correspond with the way that the item is being, or the order in which the item is being drawn. So if you wanted to modify the attributes of how this is being drawn, so it would appear like below this line here, what you would need to do is actually go into tools and then modify and then order and then move to bottom, and you'd see that now this door ends up showing up underneath this line here. So the green is covering it, even though if I select it here you can still see that it appears there. So I'm actually going to move that back up to the top. What you're probably going to find that you're going to be doing is drawing from the bottom up, but if you move around in the order in which you're drawing certain attributes in some sort of design piece, then you may end up with entities that are not in the particular order that you'd want when you have certain layers on and off. So you may have to move stuff up and down. In that case, it didn't seem to move, so let me just try that again. Go back into modify and then order, move to top. Yeah, and there we go. So let's draw some more doors. So if we have a garage door, it's pretty typical to have a exterior door beside a garage door, like offset to the side. So here I think I'm going to place it, make it like the same distance as what I did over here, so 2 feet over to the right. So I'm going to make a line that's kind of just like a measuring stick for me here. So you can see at the bottom right there, there's bottom left, offset distance 2 feet over. That's good. So once I have that made, I'm going to go and choose my rectangle tool again. And now I'm going to go 36 inches, so 3 feet. And I have my exterior door. Now I can just delete that little extra line segment that I made to help me measure the distance that I wanted. So now that I have that, rather than redrawing it all the time, I could just copy and paste it. Now, for Windows, why don't we make a new, well, first of all, I'm going to make a layer for Windows, and probably best to represent those with like cyan. So I'm actually going to change my floor to layer attributes, which you can do by right-clicking on it and go edit layer attributes. I'm going to change it to green just to keep it a consistent color across floors, walls, and windows and doors and stuff like that. So I'm going to keep my doors color white or black, as you can see here. You might want to consider also at this point like hatching the interior of the walls, but we're just gonna ignore that for now and keep placing our doors. So let's draw a window actually. So I'm imagining like a large kind of like bay view window over in this corner here, sort of like a view out. So probably want to throw like maybe a 6 or 8 foot wide window here. I'll do 8 feet. So I am going to create a new layer called floor 1 windows, and I'm going to set the color to cyan. Now I'm going to go and I am going to measure off, probably have a little chunk out here that would be like the corner support column for that side of the house. So probably could just do it square from like the width of it, so like 4 inches in this way, 4 inches in that way. It'd be kind of a visually appealing sort of sizing for something like that. So here I can just actually just use the grid. It's easy enough. So I'm just going to draw that as like a little marking line, and another one down here as a marking line. And now I just choose the rectangle tool, and I can use my relative dimension, of course, and I said 8 feet earlier, right? So go 8 feet over this way. I have an 8 foot window there now. I'll do the same thing over here. And yeah, nice big corner bay view window. So I'm probably now going to want to modify my wall layer to kind of reflect that. Depending on what your intended like goal in terms of outputting this drawing is, you would either want to move that line segment there, or you could just ignore it, because you would have that wall existing there just like below the elevation of the window. So depending on what your methodology or like intended like output, like if you're going into import this into Blender next, you probably would want to keep this as a continuous line segment underneath. That way you could like extrude it vertically up into like the bottom level point of like where the windows would be, and then draw in the voids around the window boxes. But for now I'm just going to leave that like as it is and have this object appear above my walls layer so that I can actually see and distinguish it. The other thing too that you can do is set up like different line widths. So if I wanted to like thicken the line, if I go into the layer attributes and I set the width to be like 0.5 millimeters, I just need to turn on the line width preview, which I can't remember how to do right now. To the reference manual.